All right, so we're in the Sifra Tzniuta, and we're going to start on page Taf Reish Gimel. And where we got to, some stuff that I really didn't follow. I tried to go over it last night. I guess I was a little wiped out, but I tried to go over it. Here we go, number Daled. So what's our inyan? Our inyan is that we have this phrase which is it's Yachid Yud Bilhudovi. So the common understanding is that when the bia, let me get it out here. The nai, okay, the nai. If Ima leaves Zeranpin and goes into Malchus, then you leaving the Chochma, the Abadika aspect alone. That was what we heard previously. So let me see if I can get my words working right now. Here, let's see what he writes in number Dalit. Od beer bebor yakar. Now the word yakar I find like it's like not that easy to follow. It's like disconnected a little bit usually. So he says that over there, he says the fi darko b'firush hasheni according to his second pirush. So he says she'aba shehu yud. So no problem with their mashpil le'ima as sharshi zer anbin b'nukva shehem sod milui vav dalet. So far so good, no problems here. Secha b'shel os yud vav dalet. So the yud is spelled like that. It's also a 10. So he says that this is really the roots of Zohar v'No. Because after that, so that's a little contradiction because they're also always supposed to be together, which we have this whole problem here. But over here he says so they're going to make a yichud. So he leaves from that. So he goes all the way up to there. So he says that, it's like when your wife gives birth, you're not in the room, or, you had to leave. So I guess he's making, I'm not sure what the reason why that you would have to make that particular point that Abba has to leave her for her in order to generate the children. But in this case, I guess he means that's what he says. But the Ida Pirush al Shani, now there's another explanation. He says the Yirtza, if you like this, he says the Yached Yud Shuhu Chochma, right? He says Shenis Achatach Be'im Bina, that became one with Bina. So Yichud Abba Be'im Nu, V'Chashpir V'Chamshicha, then he streams into her, Lebina. Told us v'havayos sharshi parts of their anpen do so dalid vav, which once again that in Latin it's the number 2. So he says it's yached yud bedarkoi. So there's this yud at his. Let's go over this words. He says that it's yached yud bedargoi dahainu mamash mitzias do partsufi shebasocho. So here we have the word yichud again. It's yachid, the yud, bedargoi. Now, this is not really... If you have a situation where Abba has left Ima, and they're not together, and then Abba, he says, yachud, yud, bedargoi, I guess on whatever level he's at, I'm not sure what that means. The hainu mamish, mitzius dav, du, partsufi, shebesocho, inside of her. Now, I don't see that making sense. We were talking about the Yud, and now we're talking about the Du, which is inside of the womb of Ima. But he says instead, it's Yached Yud B'Dargo D'Chem Mamash Messias Dud Partsufim Shebesocha Shebechochma, inside of Chochma, She'im Hiyosh She'atzilum Mitziyusa B'She'atzilum Mitziyusa Ba'atzman Omed. Let's read She'im Hiyos She'atzilum, that as they came out. Now, what's the subject here? We talk about the children. Mitziyusin and Ma'atzman Omed. They have a reality of their own. They're standing in their own reality. Is that what it means? V'hi ha'chochma, that is chochma you talk about. Misached v'darkui. Now, go back to this phrase again. He has a yichud at its own level, ba'atzmusa, by itself. Now, one of the things that throws me about this is that I'm not used to thinking of Abba as a female. He says, ba'atzmusa. So he said, so Okay, I'll just wait for Rebbe to come back here. Trying to understand, this is not an easy thing to put together. Okay, so it just seemed to me like as I'm learning this is that there's lots of loose ends. Like so you were talking about three different things. So he says du partzufin shebesocho, and he says inside of her, inside of chachma. It says yeah, chachma what? I'm not sure. It's she'im hiyo she'atzilim that as they're coming out, mitziyusim ba'atzman omed. They have. Does this mean that they have their own identity? I'm not sure what this means. That is the chokhmah, and once again, he's referring to chokhmah in the feminine. A misachedes bedargoi ba'atzmusa has a yichud that sounds like by itself. It says a yichud b'nei ubei. Is that what it means? So he said, why? What is it? Shemistalekes me'al habina, that it leaves bina. A misachedes ba'atzmosa. So that seems like if we went back a little bit, maybe looked at it again, he wants to say that it sounds like a yichud minei ubei. Why he's saying it in the female, I'm not sure I understand. She'eda mishtatefes ela bina, because no, it's no longer, or it's not joined together with bina besoda yichud. So today she is pashed habina lamata, and what does this do? It allows bina to spread downwards. We had a question earlier, why was we always saying that they're always riding together, they're always together, and here they separate? What's the purpose of that? He said kadesh dispashed the bina lamata, so the bina should be able to spread downwards. The ha'atzel is spheros, in order to bring out the spheros. That is Zohar v'nog. V'hainu Omru salig bedargoi la'elo. So this is what he says. It goes up in its level higher and higher. The hainu achizaso shel ha'chochma b'shorsho amistateres bekeser, with its root, which is hidden in keser, because everything in keser is hidden. But there's a lot left out here. There's a lot missing here, and it's really a little bit hard to understand. One of the main focus seems to be that they split. Zohar v'nog splits, and he didn't say it in a way that I would like to digest it, that the fact that there's a yichud minei ubei in chokhmah, which apparently he wants to say drives chokhmah all the way up, bedargoi, all the way up to where his shorish is in Keser. That's the best I could get out of that. It's disappointing to me that I can't understand it better, but it's a lot missing here. So in number hey, he says bir shlishi hosif be'or yakar. So let's go at it again. Why not? V'zel l'shona od. Here's some more idea. Od efsher l'farsha b'derech hacheres. Let me explain it to you a different way. He says, b'hi ke'inyan shapirish Rabbi Shimon b'Zohar. This is what the Zohar says. Ach re'mos. So maybe in a minute we'll look at that. Upirish yesh losha b'chinas. So there's always three different levels. Now this to me is really, really difficult because it seems to me like it's missing stuff. So I don't know. So the first one is Nikra, Vav, and Yud. Now I'm reading it from the right to the left. Right, verse comes the Vav, then comes the Yud. Hashenis is called Hey Vav Yud. Bashlishi Nikra Aleph Vav Yud. So, for one thing, I'm not sure where did the Aleph come from here. I don't know what Aleph represents. Let's go on. So the Siluk HaBrachos Malchus. So this concept, what is it? All three of them or one of them? I'm not sure, but it's the secret of the removing of the Brachos, he said, which is the Shefa, from Malchus. The Pa'amim Yistalkol Brachos, the Hainu Yud, that is, what are the Brachos? He said the Hainu Yud, that Yud Vav Daled, Pirish, Ha'ima. Okay, so he wants to say what? So I'm not really sure that Ima is wait a minute, I read it wrong, I'm sorry. It's Pi Ha'ama, the tip of the organ. Sha'alecha ne'emar, in regards of brachos the Rosh Tzaddik. So the tip, this is talking about the tip. So let me just read it back a little bit. These things all seem to be separated and just ideas we could use somewhere, but I can't put them together here yet. The Pami Mistalkal HaBrachos, what is the brachos? Behind the Yud Vav Dawid. What's the Yud? And he means to say, I think, just Yud, I think. He said, excuse me, pi ha'ama. It refers to the very tip of the male member, so of the yesod. Shalach on the emma, because in regards to the yesod, it says. Okay, we have another little interruption here. And that should help us to be able to understand this. There's a lot of different pieces to ideas here. Here we go. Okay. So let's go back here. So he said with the yud is at the pia amma. Shalach on the emma, with regard to the pia amma, it says, brachos the rosh tzaddik. The tzaddik is yesod, and the rosh of the tzaddik is going to be, I guess, the pia amma. Behind Yud Rosh Tzaddik. That is the Yud Rosh Tzaddik. Yud is the head of the Tzaddik, the tip of the Tzaddik. That's what we said before. I don't know if I'm right. But there's Yud B'Luchudui, and with this, you have the concept that the Yud is making a Yichud by itself, or it's left by itself. What does it mean? The Ne'esach HaTzaddik Me'al HaNekeva. So here we come. He said that's going back to the idea of the removal of the male aspect from the female aspect. So he said, Isyached Yud B'Luchudui. So it goes and makes a yichud, or it becomes isolated. That's what he's translating it. V'ne'asach HaTzaddik v'ne'esaf, and it gathers itself up, me'al, from going upward, it leaves the nukva. So this is one way in which the brachos leave. That is the yud, which represents the pia amma. He says it leaves. Nikra Vav Yud. Okay, everybody, we got to get this here. That's called Vav Yud. The Vav has the Vav and the Yud. So you can explain. Shin Esach Tzadik Yud Lamala. So the Tzadik, which is the Yud, he says, is going up above. What's the Vav? The Vav is going to be Tiferes. I hope. Upamim Eno Mistalak Ela Tiferes. Sometimes it doesn't go to the Tiferes. But it just stays there separated. Behind the Isyachad B'Luchudui, that means that it gets left by itself. Upamim Saleg B'Dargua, but that sometimes, he said another way of looking at it, that it goes up in different levels. The Hainu Shlosha Madregos, it goes up 3 levels. Now he's going to say, what are the levels? So Echad B'Sod Vav Yud. So one of them is a Vav in the Yud. Yesh Kan Shisha Madregos. So he says, wait a minute, there's 6 different levels. He says, Saluka Luchud, that it leaves, it becomes by itself. O Saluka the Netzach, or it goes to Netzach. O Saluka the Teferis, O Saluka the Gevura, O Saluka the Chesed. So it could go all the way, where does the tip? I think he's talking about the tip, I'm not sure. He says, O Saluka, but I guess he just means the Yud itself, which is supposed to be the Yisod, I'm not sure. It may go up to any one of the 6 spheros, up above the level of Yesod. Or it could just stay right where it's at. Hakol kafi hapagam. So everything really depends on the nature of the blemish here. Umakom stimas habrachos, and the place where the brachos get cut off, I guess, closed up. Pami mistalak alabina, that sometimes the stalkus is very high. Oz nikra, then try to figure this out. He says then it's called Hey Vav Yud. So Hey here, I guess, must I was thinking the Hey must mean Bina. And then the Vav is usually Zeranpin. And then the Yud, we're talking about what? The tip of the connection there. Shenistalkla brachos el sod ha-hey, they go up to, the brachos go up to the secret of the letter Hey. And so then you have the letters Vav and Yud, v'lekach, and therefore the Vav and Yud. So I'm trying to figure out the formula here. I mean, when he gets to the Aleph, I don't think he tells me what the Aleph is. So the Vav and the Yud, he said shehem sod meshach on meshach, the flow of the Nahar, the Rosh Sadik. So what is that? He says nistalak la'ela the siluk echad dahainu alabina. So let's go back and just look at this one more time. What we just said. V'lekach, the Vav Yud. What's Vav Yud mean? So meshach nahar. So this is the flow of the stream, or the river, whatever the stream, the Rosh Sadik to the tip. So I guess you would say that the Vav here is Zeranpin. And the flow is then going to the letter Yud. No? very, very hidden language here. And nistalik la'ela, then they have this idea, it goes up. Siluk echad ha'indach ha'bechadabina, there's one there. Ulapamin nistalik Yosef. Sometimes it'll go really, really pull itself way, way far back. Kamosha Amr la'ela, as it says up above. La'ela, the hainu sheyistalik ela chochma, it should go up to chochma. V'ha'keser, into that place also, into a place unknowable, the hainu. So now he says, what is this? So the aleph must mean keser. Nobody said that yet. So he said must mean. Hainu, this is what it means when it goes all the way up. It goes to the aleph, and then the rest of that's coming up there is the vav, which is going all the way up there, carrying the yisod with it. Kedifrishno ad kan, as we explained it. Here's what it is. Now, like I say, the Risaruka, not the Risaruka, the Or Yakar is always seems to be missing things and make an easy translation. Now let's go down to the bottom and see if we could get any help here. Number Vav. So in number Vav, he says, you want to help? He says, Rei Zohar Chai. No, just the Zohar Sham. And he says, I guess what we were learning before. So he said, Tinyanan, we learn Kad is Parish Malka Matranesa. So this is what this is all talking about. The leaving of the Malka, from the king from the queen. Is the Berkan lo mishtatchan. As when that happens, where's the brachas? They're gone. Kaden ikre vav yud. Now when that happens, it's called vav yud. Now why my time of vav yud? The sanya. So trying to hopefully get a little bit of help here. He said, Beresha the Yisod is the Yud. The Ha Yisod is the Vav Ze'irahu. So he wants to say what? A Vav Ze'ira, small Vav is a Yud. V'kedusha Berichu Vav Ravrava Ilor. V'kedusha Berichu, which is usually Zer Anpen, he's a big Vav. Ilor, I guess it's up on top. V'alda Matranisa, I'll skip that. V'alda Ksiv Vav Vav, and this is a reason why it's written with a double Vav, because it's really two Vavs. Trin Vavim Kachada, but they're like one. Because, I don't know, I see, in other words, it's still missing something. Because what I want them to say, he says that we said before that it's a little Vav, so he said that's really why you write it Vav Vav, because it refers to also the Yisod that goes with it. I don't know. They're like, so it's a Trin Vavim Kachada. So they're like, one element. Could it be Yisod and is the tip of Tiferes? So therefore, that's it. Beresha, the high Yisod, is the Yudhu. So the head of the Yisod is the Yud. So I guess when he said Resha, he means the tip. Because it's Rachaka Matranisa b'Malko. So when the Matranisa distanced herself from the king, she becomes distanced. The Birkan is Manoam and Malko, and then the brachas stop flowing to the queen. That's Malchus. If it is of Zivuga lo ishtakach beresha the Yisod, and now there is no longer at the tip of the Yisod, there's no longer a Yichud. Not el Vav Ilah, so the Vav, which represents Tiferes, the high Resha the Yisod Duhu Yud. So he's a Notel, the Vav takes it, which is the Yud. The Nagid lay the Gabe and brings it to itself. Kaden hu Vav Yud. So when that particular thing happens, he's really trying to zero in here. He says that's when we call it Vav Yud. Vav is taking the Yud. So, okay. So one of the problems I have in understanding this, if I was writing it, I would write it Yud Vav instead of Vav Yud. Because he's saying that it's coming from the energy here is coming from Zer Anpen, which is the Vav, as bringing up the Yud, which is down below. I would have thought it would go on the other way. But that's what he says. The Vav is attracting the Yud. The Yud, and this phrase, Vav Yud, L'kula L'aloyim V'satoyim. So it's the Vav Yud. I'm not sure what this phrase means. Vav Yud L'kula, for the whole thing. L'aloyim V'satoyim, etc. That's a quote. So exactly what it said, I'm not sure. Amalai, so they said to him, if that's the case, it should be Aleph Vav Yud. Oh, Hey Vav Yud, which is now we're thinking that Aleph Vav Yud refers to going all the way to Kesser. or hey vav yud, going all the way to bina. Mahu. So what we have here, Melissa, he says that kad mila talia b'tshuva v'lo taivi. He said what? Kad mila talia b'tshuva. So whatever you're saying has to have an answer, and you don't answer. Is that what that talia means? So kad talian, but it's not the kad mila talia b'tshuva v'lo taivi. So I'm not sure what that meant. In other words, a person didn't do tshuva. I think that's what it means, but I'm not sure. So he said, so then, hey elo not elon. That's when the upper hey takes them. Okay, so the upper hey, that could make a little sense if it is that that the upper hey is bina. Bina represents tshuva. It's the place from which you do go tshuva. So let's go backwards a little. Kad mila talia b'tshuva v'lo taivit. So what we're talking about is a situation where you did something. Let's say that's the mila. I'm not sure, but he says, say for example, it requires tshuva. V'lo taivin, a person doesn't do tshuva. Then what happens? Then, hey elo not alone. The upper hey takes them back. He says v'angid levav v'yud, and then it brings back the vav and the yud legaba to her. So that's a certain kind of description, which is pointing at Ima, that's saying that when this tshuva depends on that. Let's say maybe he's going to say that begin the lo taivin, and the reason why she brings them back is she's tshuva herself. She brings them back is because they don't do tshuva. Kedin ikre hey vav yud. That's when you call it hey vav yud. So he said, is talag a malka la'ela, but then they could be that the queen, or I guess the king, that is Zeranpin, is going to get even further away. But Tzavachim b'nei Nasha, and people are crying out, v'ashkach bahu, but they're not being heard, nobody's listening. That's an interesting thing, is that I've been reading, this Rabbi Margaret, I've been leading a little bit. So what did I get out of that? Is that we're talking about Kesser, and also in the Chaim Kramer talk about this too, is that Kesser is unknowable. So like when you're in a situation where you're in katnas, and that's what he's describing here. He said that you have you're in katnas, and you need the answer to something, and you can't get it. You just don't have no idea where it is, because it went. That's a sort of an idea there. It went back to Kesser, and Kesser is not knowable. So therefore, you don't know. You have to do something to be able to bring that back. So anyway, let's go over here. And Rebbe just dropped out. We're almost done with this, and I want to be done in the time. Okay, I'm back. So I was going on, and I was saying that I think that's what this means here. So he said again, the lo taivin gedin ikre hey vav yud. Then we go to aleph vav yud. Kad istalak malka la'ela, when it gets v'tzvochim b'nei nasha below ashkachuch, and they're crying out. People are crying out because the katness is very bad, and nobody's listening. He said v'haku ilo ekye tamira. Now this seems to me that it's like, is he talking about the hidden ekya, and that's the aleph? Sadik levov v'yud vav yud legabe. It takes them up to itself. That's the ekya. That's bina. Begin to lo is kabel saluse, and the reason why is because the prayers are not being heard. They're not received. Keden ikre aleph vav yud. That's when it's called this situation. Now, what situation he's talking about? He's talking about the yichud of Abba ve'ima. That's the situation he's talking about, or the yichud of Yisod with Malchus. There's a stalkus there. So he says it could go to this place where it's aleph vav yud, the aleph salik the gabe. It brings to itself. I guess that's how you translated the vav and the yud. Because then tshuva lo ishtakach. When that happens, when the aleph takes it back, you can't find an answer. You go to the rabbi, you can't answer it. Valda is stalag ma'elin asfon hey, and in the same way that that is right. of Aldon, this is Stalag Me'elin, Asvon Hay, the hay leaves. The hub, the tshuva, below talia, because this is not depending on your just doing tshuva. Because he said it's crying out. That's crying out is lashon tshuva. It's my nukfit. V'dai, and it's sufficient. Kad afnio chovi alma tefei. Asgio. Okay, so I'm sorry I couldn't read it that well. Asgio, when there's too much of an abundance of sin. V'tshuva hazeh talia b'kadmisa. So the tshuva that we're talking about really depends on the previous state, maybe below bo, but it doesn't come. The tshuva is not good enough. V'chukaden is stalak hay. This is when the hay leaves. V'alef salik lo yud alagabe, and so this does make sense now. He says so. Therefore, when tshuva doesn't work, because whatever happened down below was so bad. So therefore, there's no answers. Tshuva won't do it. It causes the what he said, not the yud vav. He says he calls it vav yud to go to the hay, and that's what he said. Va'alef salik levav, levav yud legabe. It takes the vav and the yud to it. That's what the aleph does it, which is keser. The ikre ovi, and then it's called this name aleph vav yud adkan. Now that is some mysterious writing, if you ask me. Thank you for learning with me today. Call to.